Citizenship quickly ranked the best countries for residency, not citizenship in the world. And things that we actually looked at to get this list was, did the country either have a territorial or pure tax haven status? And was there nice weather all year round? Also looked at, did the country offer free health care or inexpensive health care? And also, was the health care good? And were there discounts given to senior citizens? And also we looked at, is a culture for Westerners pretty easy to adjust to? And can you get by with English? All right, now these list of countries that we put, I actually didn't do this in order. So whatever of these countries I'm giving you, it's not in order of preference, because all of them had their advantages and disadvantages, and everybody's going to kind of look at these countries differently. But I'm going to go through them individually and tell you pretty much the advantages and disadvantages. But I pretty much have looked all over the world, and these I feel like are the best countries if you really want residency. Now, you might disagree with me on a lot of these countries, but let me tell you what I did. First of all, if they didn't have a territorial tax system or pure tax haven status, they were actually pulled out, because our listeners are really mostly are libertarians, and they don't believe in either high taxes or actually low taxes, or either no taxes at all. So we put that top on our list. So if you've got some countries in mind that tax worldwide income, they're not going to be on this list. These are all either pure tax haven countries or countries that have territorial tax systems. So this is the main thing that we actually looked at on here. So let's look at the countries and kind of go through this and then go from there. The first one I had, and like I said, these are not ordered as far as the best countries, but Malaysia was the first country I wanted to talk to you about. It does have a territorial tax system. One thing I will tell you about Malaysia, they do have not only a good tax system, but they've got real good health care, and it's a very inexpensive place to live. One of the cheapest places I've ever lived in the world. One disadvantage I don't particularly like is if you decide that you want to use this residency that leads up to a citizenship, they don't allow dual citizenship, so you're going to have to relinquish your other citizenship if you ever want to get a passport there. And I always tell people, why not just get residency in a place that eventually you can get a second passport in, or maybe a third or fourth passport. You're going to have a problem with Malaysia on that. So this is something that is a big disadvantage of that program, because it will take you years and years and years to get the passport if you can get it, and it's you're going to have to relinquish your other passport. So that's one thing I don't like. It does have nice weather all year round. It can be kind of hot during the tropical time during the year. I actually like St. Kitts a lot better, which I'm going to go through. St. Kitts and Dominican Republic, I think, have the two best weather as far as countries on the best weather pattern of any country in the world. They're excellent as far as weather goes. Malaysia can be a little bit hot certain times of the year, but they do have excellent health care, and maybe not quite as good as Singapore, but it's at tops. In fact, it's probably one of the best, if not the best, of the countries I'm going to go through here. Also, if you're looking, to retire there and you're trying to live on a budget, the My Second Home program is a very, very neat program that you can get involved with, and very cheap to get involved with it. So, it's a very popular program that I would, put at the very top. Another one I would put at the very top too, as far as healthcare, would be the Philippines. The Philippines does have good healthcare, especially if you're going to Manila. Now, there are remote areas of the Philippines that don't have as good a healthcare as the main cities. So you have to take that consideration also. But let me talk a little bit about Panama. Panama is the second country I want to talk about. A lot of I know a lot of country newsletters like International Living rate it tops every year. I lived in Panama for 4 years, and I know a lot about Panama. One thing I'll tell you that's really nice about Panama is it's got a great territorial tax system. It's got nice weather all year round. It does seem to get really hot in February and March. It's got weird weather. Time of the year you wouldn't think that it would be really hot for a lot of countries, but it's right near the equator and it gets very hot. I mean, sometimes close to 100, and it's Fahrenheit, and it's very humid there certain times of the year, and you have really heavy rains and tremendous electrical storms. You don't have hurricanes, but you do have earthquakes. I had one when I was there, when I was in a high rise one time. So that's something you have to think about. They have great retirement benefits for people who are at retirement age. You can qualify as an jubilado, and literally you can get 20% off on airline tickets. You can get discounts on everything: hotels, food, restaurants. It's incredible, the discounts. They've got actually one of the best discount programs for senior citizens for doctor care. I mean, everything, nursing home that you can think of. It's the healthcare is phenomenal. They do have a state-of-the-art hospital, a Johns Hopkins hospital there. They can do just about everything there. It's state-of-the-art. And, the culture is pretty, it's kind of laid back. It's the slowness of stuff it's hard to get used to sometimes. One thing that you're going to have to get used to is the corruption there is pretty bad. The only other country I might talk about where the corruption's worse is maybe Dominican Republic or Guatemala, but it is pretty bad there. In fact, if you ever get stopped from the policeman, he's always going to throw up two hands. One hand is you can pay him, which is going to be a smaller fee, or you can pay the government, which is a higher fee. It kind of throws you in a dilemma. But they throw this on you all the time, especially right around Christmas time when they need to get their presents. You're going to get that hit on you a lot. And a lot of money shoved under the table. So it's pretty bad for that. And if you don't mind that, fine. But some people don't like it. The culture is pretty easy to deal with. And I will tell you this, a lot of these magazines will tell you that a lot of people speak English in Panama. That's not correct. I can tell you, best case is 2% of the population there speaks fluent English, and most of that's going to be in Panama City. So, you're going to have to look at that, but it does have a lot of good benefits with the discounts with the jubilado program. And like I said, they've got a great tax system, but there are programs that I like probably better than that. And remember, Panama, if you live there long enough, you can qualify after 5 years to apply for the passport. You will not get it in 5 years. So it's going to take you 10 to 15 years at the max. And if you're going there for that, I wouldn't do it, because you're going to have to relinquish your other citizenship. And you're also going to have to pass a Spanish test to actually do it. And Malaysia is the same way too. You're going to have to pass a Malay test, and Malay is pretty difficult to learn. I think it is anyway. I think it's harder to learn than Spanish. Third one I'm going to talk about is Ecuador. Ecuador is I would put it on the same level as far as cost with Malaysia. It's cheaper than Panama. It's pretty much close to the price of Malaysia. Some things might be cheaper than other on both countries. Ecuador also has pretty good health care, not as good as Malaysia. It is a Christian country. Malaysia is a Muslim country. So if you're Christian, you have to think, is that going to bother you? Is it going to affect you there? Because in Malaysia, what you'll find out is you're going to hear the mosque playing at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I experienced that there and also in Dubai. So, you need to, if you don't want to be hearing that, then you need to find places that are not close to mosque, because that can bother you if you're not a Muslim, because it will wake you up. And it can be a nuisance sometimes as far as keeping you up, getting you up, especially during Ramadan. They start even earlier, so that's something you have to consider there. And it's all over the country. So and I'm not cutting the religion down. I'm just saying that if you're not a Muslim, then you can't deal with that. Then you need to think about that. Ecuador does have a territorial tax system. It's excellent in those regards. It's got very inexpensive food. Everything is cheap there. I mean, it's incredibly cheap in Ecuador. It's one of the cheapest in the world. That's why I've got it in this list. And the English is probably worse there as far as the number of people that speak English than Panama. I would say that Panama probably has more people that speak English there. But, you know, you'd have to be the judge of that. That's the experience that I've had. And to get the passport, you're going to have to relinquish your other citizenship to get that. You got to pass the Spanish test. So if you're going there, I would go there with the assumption of not getting the passport because you would have to relinquish your other passport. So you're just going there for residency purposes. It's cheap. You can live there tax-free. You know, and I'll tell you this too. If you're looking to go to a place that is between a pure tax haven and a territorial tax system, you're going to probably be if you're retired, you're probably going to be paying less in total taxes with a territorial tax system than a pure tax haven, especially if you're retired, because usually pure tax havens come back with custom duties, import duties, higher VATs, because they don't have an income tax, whereas territorial companies or territorial countries typically will hit you on taxes inside the country but not outside. But if you retire, see, it doesn't affect you. So you really get the best of both worlds, because then you're not having to pay high customs duties and you're not having to pay income taxes inside the country. So that's one thing I do like about territorial tax systems if you're going to retire there. So don't take so much in consideration getting a second passport if it's a lot cheaper, that you're saving a lot more on taxes if you've got maybe 2 or 3 passports already. So you have to be the judge of that on what you want to weigh, and you know, do you want a second passport? Because if you do, then you might be better off going to one of these places but remember, like I said, you would have to relinquish your other passport to go into these places like Malaysia, Panama, Ecuador. This is an issue that you're going to have to deal with there. Guatemala, one of the biggest problems with Guatemala, the crime is pretty high there. Of these countries that I've already mentioned, Guatemala probably has the worst crime rate. It is incredibly cheap, though. I'm going to tell you, in fact, it's cheap. I would say Guatemala is probably cheaper than even Malaysia. If it's not, it's real close. And it's, I would say, would beat out Ecuador. It's that cheap. It's incredibly inexpensive. They've got a territorial tax system. Healthcare, I would say, is not quite as good as Panama's. Probably on par with Ecuador's. Maybe Ecuador might be a little bit better if I had to take my choice, but Malaysia would be better than the countries as far as healthcare of the countries I've mentioned before so far. You know, Guatemala is a place that you know, there's less people that speak English there than the other countries that I've mentioned. So this is something you have to take in consideration. Let's talk about the Philippines. Philippines is, I'll be honest with you, as far as retirement, I like it better than any of the countries that I've just listed. And I've noticed in the number of hits I get on YouTube, I get more hits on their residency program than any of the other ones, and for good reason. Philippines has a lot of advantages. It's got across the board tops on everything. Everybody almost speaks English. If you don't speak English, you were brought up in a real poor family household. In fact, Tagalog is the main language there, which is the Philippine language, but everything is in English. All the signs that you see all across the country, they're not in Tagalog, they're in English. So that tells you that almost everybody you can communicate with. The healthcare is very good, especially in Manila. I would put it on a par with Malaysia, maybe better, maybe not quite as good, but it's real close. I would say those two are top notch. But the great thing is you can communicate with everybody. Man, that means a lot. I'm telling you, I would much rather live in Philippines than I would in Panama or in Malaysia or in any of the countries that I've mentioned so far. I like it tops. It's and I'll tell you something too. If you're single, if you want some real pretty dates, I'm going to tell you something. The Philippines has got them, and they view guys totally different in the Philippines. In fact, I would put Philippines in Thailand, and I would say maybe Vietnam tops as far as if you're an older guy, and when I say older guy, maybe up to 80 years old. They don't look at guys different. They don't look at them as old hags. They look at them as wise people. And but you do have to be careful because there are gold diggers out there. So you need to be don't get sucked into buying a bunch of stuff for women. If you're gonna, I would date them for a long time before you get married to them, and you better know what you're doing. And I would advise you to have a real strong prenuptial agreement. If you look at my other tapes, I've told people to do that, whether you marry somebody from the Philippines or whatever country. You need to have a strong prenup agreement, and read up on our other tapes and look at our tapes on offshore investing and asset protection. You need to do that. But the Philippines is very inexpensive, very cheap, great health care. They've got incredibly cheap prices. You can look at my other tapes. They've got hotels as cheap as 10 US a night. I've been in hotels that are as cheap as $11, $12 US a night, right on the ocean front. I mean, this is how cheap it is. It's incredibly cheap there. Food is, I can't tell you how cheap it is. It's incredibly cheap. I went to a dentist, and you can get your teeth cleaned there for 10 US. You can get a cavity filled for 10 US. You can get a tooth pulled out for 10 US. It's incredibly cheap there. And these are good quality dentists too. It's just their standard of living there's a lot lower. It's totally different. But the people are paid very low pay there. The average wage, I talked to ladies in the mall, the minimum wage in the Philippines is like 300 pesos a day. That's less than $5 US a day I didn't say an hour, I said a day. This is why it's so cheap to live there. And, you'll meet a lot of Filipino girls that are beautiful. When they smile, their teeth are out. They don't even a lot of them don't go to a dentist. They have been in the dentist their whole life because they just don't put that as a first priority because it's they don't have the money to even pay 10 US to get their teeth cleaned. That's why so many people outsource to the Philippines. It's that inexpensive. And you can get some good quality people that speak good English. It's a great place to outsource. I would tell you it's tops for outsourcing because of the wages, and the English speaking is very good. Healthcare, like I said, is good, especially if you're in the main cities, especially Manila. Even the public hospitals, if you're close to Manila, are pretty good. The public hospitals are a lot cheaper, maybe a third to a half of what the private hospitals are. And they've got a great program that's called Phil Health. Incredibly cheap. It's just incredibly cheap. The Phil Health program. It's it's a huge discount it gives you on already cheap health insurance cost. But I would carry that because they have it for foreigners and also have it for locals. The local program is a lot cheaper than for foreigners because they know all foreigners do have more money, but it's not that much more expensive. It's incredibly cheap for that. But I'll tell you something, like again, if you're an older fella and you're looking for a younger guy and you're looking for, especially if you're a young guy and you want to retire early, man, I'll tell you, beautiful women there. It's incredible. And the thing is they view guys just totally different there, which is nice. It is a territorial tax system as long as you don't make money inside the country, money outside the country. Even if you're living there permanently, they don't tax worldwide income. You'll see a lot of sales on there on already cheap things right around Christmas time. I bought a pair of Fila shoes for like 17. I'm talking about quality Fila shoes for 17 US. And I have a hard time finding shoes that actually fit my feet because I've got fallen arches, so they have to have a lot of good arch support. These were like $17 US a pair of shoes. The culture is very easy to blend in with too because it's I'm a real conservative guy. Libertarians do real well there because the women are very conservative there, and you have to realize that that's the culture they've got. So if you can blend in with that's fine. Also, if you want to get a passport in the Philippines, you do have to relinquish your other citizenship. They do not allow dual citizenship. So if you go there, don't even plan on getting the second passport. In fact, you really don't even need to get it. Just get the residency. They got a great residency program. I've got a tape. I don't have time to go through it now, but you can look at a tape I've got strictly on the Philippine residency program there and how it works. But I would put it top as far as these countries I've mentioned before. I would put it on top of everything. The only thing that I did not like about the Philippines, and I'm going to tell you something, it friggin' drives me nuts, is everybody's got a friggin' rooster there. I have never been to a place that's got as many freaking roosters. To get away from roosters is like running from the sand on the ground. They're everywhere. And you can stay in a Ritz-Carlton motel and the damn roosters in the backyard of the Ritz-Carlton. Why they've got this, I don't know. But if you go on the internet, there's all kinds of complaints on these roosters. They fight these roosters, and it's a big sport over there. But they're everywhere. And that's the only thing that I had a problem with. I had to move in several hotels, different rooms, because everybody, if there was anybody behind that freaking hotel, they've got roosters, and they start crowing at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes. If they could get rid of their friggin' roosters, it would be almost a perfect world. That's probably the biggest thing I've got a complaint about. Other than that, and I will say one other thing, I would stay out of Manila. The pollution and the traffic there is incredibly bad. And you can go into the outer areas of the Philippines, and they've got some remote areas, so you can get the pollution level down to whatever you want. But accessibility gets less when you get in these less, populated cities. But this is something you really have to think about. But the great thing about Philippines, they have almost 100 million people. It's almost a third of the population of the U.S., and it's all English speaking. In fact, I don't know of any other country that has as many English speaking people in the world except for the U.S. and India, because the Philippines has such a big population. That's the big key there. They've got 18 billionaires in the Philippines, so per capita it's a lot less billionaires in Philippines, but for good reason. The wages are real low there. GDP per capita is a lot lower, but it gives you the potential. There are 18 billionaires that actually are in the Philippines, and a lot of them made it just from, a lot of them were self-made billionaires there, and they got a lot of millionaires that live there too, but there's a lot of poverty there too. All right, let's talk about Thailand. Thailand has a territorial tax system. It does have good health care, really cheap health care. The thing I don't like about Thailand is it's more expensive for their residency programs. You have to check in with the Thai authorities a lot more than you do Philippines. It's more or less a hands-off thing once you set up in the Philippines on the residency program. And I would say this, the women there are real pretty. The cost of living is on par with the Philippines. It's very difficult to see which one is cheaper. Maybe the Philippines is a little bit cheaper, but it's cheap in Thailand. Now, real estate has gotten a lot higher in Thailand lately. Philippines, by far, the rental is cheaper, and the cost of living as far as residency purposes and buying a house. In fact, also both of the places in Thailand and the Philippines that have restrictions on foreigners owning landed property there. So this is something you have to take in consideration there. But I would just rent. It's so cheap. Just take your money, invest it somewhere else, and just rent. It's a lot easier. You don't have to tie your money up. And you can, if you need to leave or something, you can just leave and not have to worry about selling. I always think it's better to do that as you get older. Belize, let me go over Belize with you. One other thing on Thailand too. Thailand does have a second passport, that it's not real good, but if you get it, you're going to have to relinquish your other citizenship to get it, and you're also going to have to pass a Thai exam, a language exam, and Thai is a difficult language to learn, so this is something that you have to think about, but their tax system is good, being a territorial tax system, and that's one thing I do like. There are, people that speak English there. Nowhere not like the Philippines, though. That's the thing I do like about the Philippines over Thailand. Pretty girls in Thailand, just as many as in the Philippines. That's one advantage, too, if you're single and you're looking for a relationship. But let's look at Belize, Central America. Belize, Central America is more expensive than I would say probably any of the other countries that I've mentioned so far. And the reason I would say it's more expensive is Belize does have a territorial tax system. It's not a pure tax haven, but it's a sparsely populated country. There's not that many people in Belize for the size of the country, and it is more expensive. I think it's more expensive than even Costa Rica. I think Costa Rica is more expensive than Panama, but Belize is a very hot place in the summertime. It does have a territorial tax system. They don't tax income outside the country. One thing I do like about Belize over these other countries that I've mentioned is Belize allows dual citizenship, so you're utilizing your time there. If you get residency, it will lead up to citizenship. You do not have to relinquish your other passport. So that's a big key ingredient that you have on this versus the other ones. But the cost of living is higher than the other ones. But it's also closer if you're from Canada and U.S. Whereas Malaysia and places like the Philippines and Thailand, they're way over. They're across the world from Canada and the USA. Belize, you can get there in just a couple of hours, about 2 or 3 hours, you can get there. So it's very, very close to the U.S. So this is something you have to think about there. And health care is not very good there. It's pretty bad. That's something you do have to consider there. But you're right next to Mexico, so you can just go into Mexico. But if you got something that's going to happen real quick, you're going to have to get a vacuum flight out, and that's the problem. If you need brain surgery or heart surgery, forget it. You're not going to get good health care on that there. I can tell you that. And maybe that would change in the future, like Panama. It's got a Johns Hopkins hospital now, but you don't have it now in Belize. So that's something you have to think about. But passport's okay. But like I said, they do allow dual citizenship, and, it's English speaking, so you don't have to worry if you speak English, which I know you do. You're listening to this tape. You don't have a problem there on, passing sort of language tests or anything like this. Costa Rica has got, they do have good health care there. I would say it's comparable to Panama, maybe even better, but it's close race right there. It's not quite as cheap as Panama, so that's something you have to look at, but you're going to have to give up your passport to get a second passport in Costa Rica, so that this is a problem there. The places, Costa Rica is a very popular place for Americans, though. A lot of Americans like it because it's close to the U.S. A lot of Canadians go there also. Nicaragua is nice, Spanish speaking. You do have to pass the Spanish test to actually get the passport there. But Nicaragua is very cheap. It's on par like Guatemala and Ecuador. Very inexpensive. It's got a territorial tax system. They don't tax income outside the country. And your overall taxes are extremely low there. They do have income taxes inside the country, but not if you make it outside the country. The health care is, I would say maybe it's probably about like Guatemala. It's not anywhere close as good as Panama or Malaysia or the Philippines. So that's something you have to think about there. St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Kitts and Nevis, one thing I like about St. Kitts and Nevis is English speaking. It's close to the U.S. They have free health care for citizens, free health care for dentistry if you're over 60 years old for dentistry, over 62 years old in hospitals if you're a national for dentistry or for anything that's in the hospital as long as you're over those ages I just mentioned. Also, your pharmacy is free at the medical clinics and also at the hospital if you're over 62, if you're 62 and over and you're a citizen. Now, a lot of countries don't offer that. That's a real big benefit there. But the thing I like about St. Kitts and Nevis too, the weather is incredible there. And it's all English speaking. They allow dual citizenship. And you don't even have to go with a fast track program with citizenship. St. Kitts and Nevis has also got another program. I got a tape that's separate on that. You can get permanent residency in St. Kitts and Nevis. It will take you a long time to go that route, not the fast track route, but the slow track is a permanent residency by buying invest in buying a property that's at least $300,000 US. You don't have these heavy government fees. You don't have the heavy background check fees, but it will take you 15 years before you can apply for the passport. Okay, but they do allow dual citizenship, and if you vow that you want to go with a fast track program, you can go with that, but you would have to buy a property that's in the citizenship area, or you could just give a donation. And now St. Kitts too, by the way, they just came out with, they've lowered their donation program to where it's $150,000 for 4 people for a 4-member family. That's about as cheap as any of the programs now in the Caribbean for 4 people. That's because of the coronavirus. They've got this promotion, but they're only putting it on for a certain period of time. So if you're thinking about doing that, I would be getting involved with that right away, because that is a temporary program. They're not going to have that forever. They've just done it because the program is slowed down because of the coronavirus. Everything's slowed down, the citizenship projects, because of that. But they have a lot of benefits. There's just so many things you can do in St. Kitts and Nevis. It's close to the U.S. You can get, it has so many direct flights to Miami, New York, Atlanta, Charlotte, North Carolina, Toronto, Canada, and you can get these places like in 3 or 4 hours flight. That's the great thing about it. Dominican Republic is another one. Now, let me tell you some things, and I call it the DR, Dominican Republic. Dominican Republic has got incredibly nice weather. It's Spanish speaking. It allows dual citizenship. And here's another one. You can go and live and utilize that time that you're there to get a second passport and not have to relinquish your other passport, okay? And it's real close to the U.S. You got direct flights to the U.S. from there, all over the U.S. And it's incredibly cheap. I would put it on par, man. It's cheaper than St. Kitts and Nevis, I'll tell you that. But it's not English speaking, and you will have to pass a Spanish test to get the second passport. That's the key there. But it is cheap, man. I'll tell you, I can't believe the prices that are there. Corruption is very high there, though. In fact, I would put corruption there is probably as bad as Guatemala, maybe worse. It's a pretty corrupt place. So you have to put that in consideration. They do have a territorial tax system. They don't tax income outside the country. They came out with this in 2007. They revamped all of their tax laws dealing with that for foreigners coming in. So it's great for that. And, it's got beautiful beaches, some of the best beaches in the world, man. I'd put them up there with the Cayman Islands. They're dynamite. But this is something you have to take in consideration. All right, the other one, the last one I'm going to talk about is Paraguay. One big thing about Paraguay is if you get residency there, it will allow you to get a second passport, and you don't have to relinquish your other citizenship, just like a Dominican Republic, but you will have to pass the Spanish test to do that. Incredibly cheap prices. I mean, I would put it up there with Malaysia. The prices are incredibly cheap. It's one of the cheapest places in the world to live. And you can apply for a second passport in 3 years, but I'm going to tell you, folks, you're not going to get it in 3 years. I would count on probably around 7 to 15 years to get it. They say you can apply after 3 years, but you're not going to get it after 3 years, I can tell you that. But you are able to apply after 3 years for that. It is territorial tax system. They don't tax income outside the country. Spanish speaking, you would have to pass the Spanish test to get the passport. Health care is okay. It's not like, I would not put it on the same part as with Panama or Costa Rica, and it's nowhere close to Philippines or Malaysia. So, that's something you have to consider there. But it is adequate health care. I would put it better than Belize. But remember, Belize is English speaking, and it's, if I had to pick a choice between the two and I wanted a second passport, although Paraguay has a better visa-free travel than Belize, you don't have to get that language test passed. So that with Paraguay, with Paraguay, you would have to get a language test passed. Belize is English speaking, so you don't have that issue with Spanish. Anyway, some of the countries I left out because some people are very concerned with other countries, like, why did I leave out countries like Spain, Colombia, Peru, Mexico, France, Argentina? Let me just briefly go over these and why I left them out, because they are on the list of a lot of these top residency programs as far as the list goes. I didn't put Spain, I didn't put Colombia, I didn't put any of these on the list because they all tax worldwide income. Spain, Mexico, France, and Argentina have great passports, but they tax you to death. The socialism there is incredibly bad. I left them out because they didn't have a pure tax haven status and they didn't have a territorial tax system, and we put that at tops, and they were left out because of that. Some of these, Colombia's got really good health care. In fact, if they didn't tax worldwide income, man, they would be at the very top of my list, because Colombia has got excellent health care that's incredibly cheap. They can do everything, brain surgery, heart surgery. It's incredible the stuff they can do. And they got really good quality doctors. But one thing I'm going to tell you about Colombia that you don't hear, and I've been to Panama next to Colombia. We used to have people coming up from Colombia all the time in Panama, and these guys were in all kinds of trouble and stuff. And 5 Americans that I knew, all 5 of those guys had lived in Colombia for over 5 years. Every single one of them had been either robbed or kidnapped. One guy told me he literally got kidnapped by FARC. I mean, this guy I talked to, I met him, he was from Alabama. And he got kidnapped. And I said, how in the hell did you get loose? He said, we were going in the back of a truck, and he says, these guys had AK-47s, and he said they fell asleep. And he says, I just rolled off the truck and went right in the jungle and got out of there. And I mean, this is the type of crap you see in Colombia. And I'll tell you something too, it's one of the biggest places in the world to buy kidnapping insurance. Mexico is another place that kidnapping insurance is big too. So, this is something you have to take in consideration. I would not go to Colombia. I'll be honest with you, not just because of the tax situation, but because of the trouble with kidnapping and theft. It's just really bad there, and I think a lot of their theft is not reported. But other than that, if you could take that out of the system, because the drug trafficking has gotten a lot better, they've knocked that back quite a bit. I would pick the ones that I've given you, mentioned before I would go with Colombia. But if they would improve on some of these other ones, Colombia would be top notch. I've been there. The people are very friendly, beautiful women. But I just would leave it off my list. I just don't want to end. The visa-free is very good. You have visa-free to all the Schengen countries, but it's I just don't like it because of that. And the other ones, the main reasons I left them off, like I said, is because they tax worldwide income. Mexico's got great health care. Argentina has great visa-free travel, incredible visa-free travel, along with Spain. But the socialism and stuff, I can't stand it. And most of our readers and listeners on our YouTube videos are interested in the taxes, and they put that top notch, and I do too. And so if they got a socialistic society, we just leave them off. Anyway, if you got if you got a question or comment, if you put it below. And also, if you want new videos as they come out, hit the subscribe button on the right of the screen, and you'll get them as they come out automatically. And also, if you go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, you can get new videos as they come out automatically. And if you don't subscribe, you can go to our website and you can pull them off our website. We've got maybe 74 different countries that you can deal with if you're not interested in these. But these are top notch as far as residency goes. And if you go to our website, hit the top button that says apply with us. You'll get questions, fill those out, and then hit the button that says send to us. We'll get back with you and try to help you out with your problem. And I'll look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.